Hello everyone. My name is Ben. I don't know how, but my soul can separate from my body and do things. No, it can't drive a car or do my homework for me. Unfortunately, but it can communicate with people through symbols. That's how she saved me once. Yes, my soul saved my body. I didn't believe it myself until I came face to face with death. I wasn't in any danger until one day, my dad brought home a woman. That rat was a bitch. She had a knack for playing innocent as long as my father was around. What did he see in her? I have no idea. I kept her in line, and she was always complaining to her father. And then one day, Daddy decided to have a make-up dinner.
Son, please come to dinner tonight. Stay with us. You know, I'm not young anymore, and I don't want to spend the last years of my life dealing with your conflicts with Sarah.
Oh Dad, how long have you lived with her? 10 years?
2 years.
Well, see, that's how it feels to someone.
Please, let's try it again.
Dad, she'll never replace my mother. You know that.
I know, and I'm not asking you to call her that. But at least I'm asking you not to aggravate the situation.
But she starts it. She's playing hurtful.
Yeah? Who ruined her dress with the iron?
It's her own fault. She let me steam it, knowing full well that I don't know how to do it.
And who put gum in her hair?
She laid down on my pillow with the gum in it.
Okay, that's not what I came here to talk about. You know I love her and I love you too, so why don't you two get along?
Your rat hates me.
Don't call her like that.
She calls me names too.
I'll talk to her too, I hope you reconcile. In return, I'll give you an iPad and a new watch. Is that a deal?
No kidding?
No.
Well, I'd do anything for that. Where would you like me to go?
To the restaurant. I'll wait for you.
I got there with no mood. But, with a strained smile, Sarah and I sat in silence until my father began to entertain and distract us. Dinner was boring and I sat for a while, and then Dad made an announcement.
Darlings, I have good news for you. I got a promotion at work.
What?
No way. Honey, that's wonderful. I always believed in you.
But, not like me.
I supported him.
But not like me. I'm his son.
And I'm his wife.
And I'm his son.
Alright, that's enough, we're having dinner. I want to reconcile with you. Especially since you have to live without me for 2 weeks.
What? Why? And Daddy said he was leaving to sign important papers. Rad and I were upset, but there was nothing to do. We saw Dad off the next day and it was just the two of us with Sarah. At first, I thought it would be awful because we could relax and not pretend we were kind of friends. That's how I planned to live in ignorance. And then the delivery guy came over to our house. I opened the door and a new watch was brought in for me. There was a note from my dad, "I'll buy an iPad when I get back. Remember your promise? Love, Dad." Well, after that I just had to have dinner with Sarah. She sat down at the table as usual and poured herself a juice. We were silent at first, and then we started arguing. Suddenly she lowered her voice and asked me not to fight with her.
I don't claim to be your mother. She was a beautiful woman. I'm sorry that the disease took her. But I don't want to live like that. I want all of us to want to come home. Not just leave at the first chance we get.
Yeah, so what do you suggest?
To be friends?
Well, let's give it a shot.
Let's drink to that.
We raised our glasses of juice. And then I went to bed. In the night, I felt a little uncomfortable. And I opened my eyes to get up. I got up. Strange. Such a lightness in my body, as if I were a fluffy thing, I said to myself and went on. I went to the kitchen. I wanted to get a drink of water, but suddenly the light came on. Whoa, man, Sarah, are you awake too? Sarah walked past me, got a drink of water, and then, left. Yo, I didn't expect such a harsh ignoring. I thought we agreed not to quarrel. She's weird. I got up on my toes and wanted to take the glass. But, I couldn't. I kept trying to grab it, but I couldn't. And then I looked closely and I noticed that the glass seemed to go through my hand. What is it? I don't understand. My hand was translucent. I had no idea why it was so. Immediately I ran to the bathroom and saw my half reflection in the mirror. I could pass my hand through the wall. I got hysterical. When I ran into my room, I wanted to call my dad, but suddenly I noticed that my body was lying motionless on the bed. I tried to touch it, but it was cold. Am I dead? What kind of a joke is this? Sarah walked into the room. You bitch? She didn't hear me.
Hey Ben. Are you asleep? Hey. Okay. Ready? Hello. Frankie, he's ready. Thanks for the sleeping pills. Are you sure there's no sign of death? Yeah, okay. What? The antidote? What do I need it for? Look, Frankie. I don't kill people to bring them back to life. Thanks for the poison, but I don't need the antidote. It won't be long before my husband goes to his grave with my son. Bye.
This horror sent shivers down my body. How could she? She called my father, and told him that she had found me dead this morning, and that there was a can of sleeping pills next to me. I could hear my father screaming through the phone.
He left a note saying that he apologized to you, and said that he didn't wait for the watch and the iPad. Asked you not to spend money on him, because he wanted to meet his mom for a long time. God, how sad.
You bitch. My dad gave me a watch. Only you do not know about it. You forget my handwriting, didn't you? That's clever. I didn't know you could do that. All I could think about was getting the antidote before it was too late. I followed Sarah. My body was being prepared for the funeral. My stepmother had ordered funeral services. The bitch. I don't know how crazy my dad was, but I had to get there before they put my body on the ground. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get out. I started panicking, looking for people who could sense me. But no one could. I was running out of precious hours, all in vain. Sarah met my father, and he came into the house and ran to me. He lay down next to the coffin and began to cry. I felt more sorry for him and for myself than ever. But I could not understand how to do it. Daddy couldn't hear me. And then night fell. Sarah went to her room, calling Daddy to rest because tomorrow is the funeral. But my father refused. He sat down in my room and wept bitterly. Then he took my supposed suicide note out of my pocket and read. That's right, I did. My dad gave me a watch, and she wrote that he didn't. It should work. I wanted to push the watch box off the shelf, but I couldn't. I was hitting it, and suddenly it shook. Yes, that should work, I shouted. I kicked and kicked at the closet, but the box didn't fall, though it did move. Dad walked out of the room. I despaired. I followed him and hugged him from behind as he lay on the bed. Daddy cried, and fell asleep. Sarah suddenly got up and called to someone.
Frankie. Is our plan still on? Yeah. Just get me some poison too. Yeah, there's been a change. They won't believe I'm innocent. I'll take it out on the maid. Yes. But you must give me the antidote when I put the poison in my husband, and then drink it myself. When? Tomorrow after the funeral. Over dinner.
The rat decided to go all in. I decided I had to remind my father of the clock by any means necessary. I wanted to look into his dream, but it didn't work. In the morning, the agency came for me. And, lucky for me, Frankie came, early. Sarah panicked. Like, why was he so early? And he said he had a change of plans. Handed her the bottles, she hid them in her cleavage and gave him the money. There was an antidote. It could neutralize the poison within 3 days. I had to make it in time. My poor body fell asleep and didn't even breathe. I had already been changed, washed. It was creepy. The funeral began. I was lying in the coffin. Daddy was crying. When Sarah pretended to try to kiss me, I jumped on top of her with a sprint and she fell on top of me, screaming. Her bottle crushed and flowed right into my mouth. She was scared. It was red. People were in shock, and so was my father. Everyone thought she was hurt. Sarah said her new underwear turned out to be substandard and scratched her breasts. I was lucky in that it was the bottle that cracked because the poison itself is clear. A prayer was said. The lid of the coffin was closed. And when they lowered me down, I felt my soul reaching for the body. After a moment I screamed and started pounding on the coffin. Yeah, what happened next was just creepy. Half the people there fainted. Anyway, when they pulled me out I told them everything right away, and took out the poison bottles and showed them to my father. Sarah was arrested on the spot. And the proof was my watch and her note. Her plan didn't work. And my dad and I are still alive and free, which is more than I can say for her and her lover Frankie.
My mother always told me that diseases were invented by people themselves. She meant our whole way of life, thinking, attitude to nature, ecology, how we harm each other, not knowing how to protect the world around us. I grew up with such an opinion, and believe that if you do not do bad things, if you teach yourself and your loved ones the right behavior to yourself and the world, then everything will be fine. But, as it turned out, not all things depend on us. I knew that there would be a turning point in my life, but this is not surprising, because it happens to everyone. I just didn't think it would come so soon. My name is Kevin, and I was born and raised in a poor neighborhood. My mother and I have always lived together. My father, according to my mother, did not wait for my birth, but stupidly ran away as soon as he found out about my mother's pregnancy. We have a hard life. My mother works all day to feed us. She has almost no time to rest, and on weekends she usually runs to work part-time in another place. At first, when I was very young, she took me with her, secretly from the leaders, and when I started going to school, my mother taught me to stay alone. So I went to school in the morning, came back at lunch, ate, did my homework, and waited for my mother in the evening. Then a couple of years later, I already learned how to cook light meals myself. So I used to meet my mother with a hot meal. I knew she was trying for me, and I tried to do something nice for her too. Sometimes it was really hard for us, but we tried to hold on. All I wanted was for me to grow up and get a good job, for my mother to stop working, for her to stay at home and wait with me with a hot dinner, and not the other way around. She never complained that she was ill, or that she wanted to sleep, eat, or be tired. She didn't think she would show herself weak to me, but I didn't think so. I didn't think she was weak. I'm sorry I couldn't have predicted her condition earlier. The fact is that one day my mother was very ill, and she did not have the flu, but something much more serious. One day, when I came home from school and was doing my homework, my home phone rang. I went to the phone and answered. What I was told then changed my life forever. I dropped everything, quickly put on my jacket, and ran. I was running towards the hospital, and I don't even remember how I got there so fast. I ran to the right floor, and a nurse stopped me in the corridor. She asked me who I was, and then said that my mother was in intensive care for surgery, and I couldn't see her. She had a stroke, and now our best doctor is performing surgery for her. Can you wait here in the hallway? Do you want me to bring you some tea? She asked. I refused. I couldn't get anything down my throat. My only fear was that I would never see her again. I don't know how many hours I sat there on a chair, alone, but in the dead of night that nurse came out to me again, or rather, she turned out to be a doctor. She said that my mother did well, the operation went well, but now everything depends on her. Whether she pulls through or not, we have to hope. But then it turned out that this is not all, for all this treatment required a lot of money. We did not have such. When I heard the sum, I didn't even immediately understand what it meant. The doctor asked if we have at least some relatives, but no. We were with my mother, just the two of us in the whole world. Then I was told that we would have some benefits, but if I wanted my mother to live, I had to find money. But where? I was allowed to see my mother a little later. I didn't recognize her. It would seem that only yesterday morning we had a peaceful breakfast with her and ran away, and now she is in the hospital, all in some wires and quietly, barely breathing. Tears welled up in my eyes. I couldn't believe this was happening to us. I put my arm around her arm and lay down, and it turned out that I fell asleep and slept until morning. The next day I went to school, sat there all the lessons somehow. I was not up to school, and I only thought about one thing, how to get money. Later, I borrowed a classmate's phone and Googled what I could do. And then just by chance I came across a message. All I had to do was agree to sell the kidney, and then I would get paid a lot of money. This offer lured me. I called the specified phone number and was actually told that this requires only my consent and that's it. I was happy and they set a day and a meeting for me. Immediately after school, I ran there to negotiate with people. I didn't even think that it was dangerous or painful or even risky. There was no guarantee that I would be given money, just as there was no guarantee that I would survive at all. I ran like hell, and when I crossed the road, I didn't pay attention to the cars. I was hit by a car, but not badly. I got up and ran the other way from the shock. The woman who hit me ran out and ran after me. I was running away from her, and she was chasing me. I didn't understand what she wanted from me. In the end, she caught up with me and began to ask if everything was all right. I quickly said yes, but then saw that my leg was bleeding. She picked me up and dragged me to the car. I began to resist, because I needed to quickly agree on a kidney, but she forced me into a car and took me to the hospital. I had some stitches. The woman apologized to me all the way. She said I ran out too late when the light was green, but all my thoughts were about my mother. The doctor asked me where my mother was, and then I started to cry, because I couldn't negotiate with people, which means I won't sell the kidney and my mother will die. I explained everything to the woman and the doctor. They listened to me, and then the doctor told me not to be upset, because they wouldn't have given me money for my organ anyway. Because it's not legal, and besides, you're still a minor, the doctor said. But I asked what I should do. Where can I get that kind of money? And that woman offered to help. She turned out to be a local reporter and made a story about me. She found it touching how desperately I fought for my mother's life. She opened a special account where the funds that people donated dripped, and she herself invested half of her salary there. I was grateful for her help. Thus, I managed to collect the necessary amount in a week, and make my mother another operation with this money, and then we had enough money to restore her. I'm lucky my mother wasn't paralyzed after that stroke. It took a long time to recover, but we had enough money thanks to good people. They supported us until my mother was released from the hospital. My mother cried a lot when she found out that I was able to raise funds. She saw me on TV, and even on the internet, and I was just happy, because my mother is alive. My mother is alive. My mother is alive.